Court, the Chief Justice of India, Surya Kant, has said that the Supreme Court is going to constitute a high-power probe committee, saying that this is the probe committee which is going to be probing the 20th July violence as well. Instances require a thorough probe, is what the Chief Justice of India has said, that law must take its own course, that action must be taken against whoever used excessive force. In fact, the Chief Justice of India, Surya Kant, has called for fair and a transparent probe. Let me go across to Geeta Luthra, who's joining us, a senior advocate. Geeta Luthra, if you can explain to us instances such as this. Now, there is an order which is coming out that there must be a free and fair probe coming in from none other than the Chief Minister. Is there finally ray of hope for justice for anyone who has been injured in these violence?
Yes, I think the first thing that happens when there are police successes is that criminal cases are filed. Now, those should quietly be withdrawn. I think that sends a very good message to students. See, there will always be other people who will join the bandwagon. But the fact is that the protest is not wrong. The cause is not wrong. So, from the time of Lala Lajpat Rai, you have seen when there was an assault during British time, police excesses are not unknown. It is high time the court once again, and I'm sure this matter is being looked at every time there are police excesses. But the question is, do we want to remind the police that this is not permissible, that to please those who are in power, the police cannot go high-handed. The police has to know what the bounds of its duties are and how to maintain law and order without actually becoming violent and aggressive.
But Geeta Luthra, here's the problem. Many are saying, and we've been speaking to several people in the police ranks, and sources there are telling us that it is going to be the police who decide what is going to be dropped, which FIR is going to be dropped. In fact, there is word that violent protesters are not going to be spared. For example, there was an instance of Dev Kotak, our own reporter. He's on the broadcast with us as well. He too was targeted. So the police says peaceful protesters would be let off. The violent ones, the lumpen elements would not. But who gets to decide?
Then it just goes south and it spirals.
Right.
The fact is that the police needed to have its act in place. If the police do excesses, people who are in a big mob, in a big procession, some may actually turn aggressive, because then there is a tit for tat. Now, therefore, I think to give its bona fides for the government to come in and to show lathis and make sure that next time it will not be forgiven, but that all these excesses should actually, if there has been ever any excess, if anyone has excess, everyone, I believe, at this point should be let off. If there were people who were aggressive, maybe they should be let off with a warning. But to my mind, if the police, which is the authority, has gone in excess, then people would not have that much control as the police should have.
Right.
So
the restraint should be shown by police who have been trained to show restraint, who have been trained how to contain a situation, is what Geeta Luthra is pointing out for us. I appreciate it, ma'am, for joining us here on the show. Let me go across to Dev Kotak. Dev, one of the things that came up in the Supreme Court as well is all the journalists, and this includes you as well, that all the journalists who have been attacked, there must be accountability for that. Now, we are not quite sure what's going to be the status of that, but that is going to be part of the larger probe which now has been ordered by the Supreme Court.
Well, yes, the fact that this matter even came up where assault on journalists and media persons only trying to do their job came up in the Supreme Court does somewhere seem to provide a ray of hope for justice. And somewhere we feel that the lumpen elements that had entered the crowd in the name of protesters demanding an overhaul of the education system can be identified. In fact, yesterday also, one of our colleagues, Priyank, had systematically put a breakdown of over 3,000 persons who had entered the crowd, and they have criminal antecedents ranging from murder to rape to robbery to dacoity. So this also somewhere seems to highlight the fact that these were mischief mongers and ruckus creators who had entered the crowd in the name or under the guise and garb of calling themselves students and protesters. In fact, as you are rightly aware that I was nearly lynched by a mob of over 100 to 150 people, and the videos which are pretty graphic and disturbing, I was lucky enough to escape.
We can see the
alive
videos,
from
Dave.
that.
Even as you speak, we can see the videos on our screens as well. Go ahead.
Well, so the fact that the Supreme Court discusses this also somewhere encourages journalists and media persons to confidently continue to do their work and not get intimidated by such crowds and elements like these. Well, you have heard my story previously as well, but there was, of course, not at all in this case. I do not agree with the excessive use of force on the genuine protesters as well, because just a day prior, I had visited the RML hospital. I met the injured cops. I met the injured protesters as well. So I completely sympathize with in terms of the wrongdoings that have happened with them, or even the heckling of journalists, including my colleagues Shefali and Jyoti Mishra. Several other media persons belonging to different media outlets were also heckled while they were in the line of duty. They were merely trying to do their job and to accuse us of being a certain kind of
In fact, they
media.
say